as I was going along for years and years looking at all these pictures, there's different ways I've spoken about providing a story over the years that I've been making the project. And one thing that has occurred to me is the repetition that's in everyone's archive. You think that the pictures that you have of yourself are terribly unique to you, but there's a construct in the way that we take pictures. And so there's a piece that I made that's a series of 8 brides being fed cake, or feeding cake to their spouses. And those pictures, all 8 pictures were taken by radically different photographers in different cities. Everyone's different, and yet the photograph is taken exactly in the same way. The composition is almost identical in all 8 of the photographs. And as I have looked through these millions and millions of frames, people are photographed like almost identically in front of the car, in front of the house, when it's their birthday, when they're on vacation. Like, there's nothing really remarkably different about anybody's photograph except who's in the picture. And so, I started making these like multiple pieces where the same activity is happening with different subjects. But I also, I hate to not look at these pictures. Like, they're almost like these narratives that I make up, and I don't know, maybe this is something I just am compelled to do. And I was talking with a curator recently who remarked that he feels like I'm obsessively like looking and cataloging these images like at all times, almost like manically and obsessively. And so I started to think about like some of the less remarkable pictures that don't have really there's no compulsion for me to make them into these photographs, but I still have them anyway. And I started noticing, the repetition of color, and I started thinking about the reasons behind the choices why products are marketed to people in colors. And I'm from Chicago, and Chicago's a test market city, and there's a lot of furniture shopping, and there's a lot of places, little big stores like Restoration Hardware just bought this like historic building and put this 5-story Restoration Hardware store. And this building is a treasure. It's like an Art Deco building with all these like inlays and everything. And you walk around, and every single thing is beige and taupe and gray. They don't make anything that's not those colors. And I was thinking, God, this is like really depressing and grim here. And so I started thinking, like, why don't they bring back like, these bright colors from mid-century America? And then I was thinking, why don't they bring back these colors? Like, what's happening here? And so I started to dig in deep, and I started to find out that the reason why cars started to be made in pinks and purples was because women were starting to be consulted on the purchasing of cars and the purchasing of appliances. And so to sort of throw the woman a bone to give her this feeling of agency in her life, they were making products that women would appeal to women. So shortly after the 1940s, when they decided after the war to start making appliances in colors, the appliances were made by the car companies. And so turquoise was the most popular color of refrigerators and stoves. And the car came in the same color. And so, the woman's relegated to the home, to raising the children, to running the errands, cooking the meals, whatever, but she feels as though she has a lot of agency in her life because of these choices, right? And we can implicate ourselves, because when you go to Home Depot and you look at the, the color charts, or when you go to pick out a sofa or whatever it is, it's like life or death if you don't pick the right color, right? You feel that this is like the end of the world, that you need to do that. And so I started to think about this idea of the color swatches and the color marketing and the choices behind all these things. And so I started to look at these boring pictures that I have that are sort of duplicates, and I started to sample the color, some of my images that are in color. And I started to pull out some of these colors from the actual original photographs, and I started seeing them duplicated over and over and over again. And then I started looking up the color swatches that were made by like Westinghouse and GM and all these other things. And so I started sampling them and sort of making them into these abstractions. And of course, abstract minimalist movement in art was happening at the same time. And that's always a very difficult concept in art to explain to the layperson. That's when people start to become suspicious of art because they think that anything that just is like sort of a canvas that's just painted red, like anything basically made by Mark Rothko is like some type of scam or something like that. So I was thinking about all those things. And then when you start to dig in deep, there's all these offensive advertisements and offensive concepts. And the one that really struck me, this sort of harvest gold and poppy red. In the 1970s, there was an oil spill coast of Santa Barbara, and so all the oil, drained into the ocean, and all the animals were affected, and the beaches were black and whatever, and it sort of made Americans realize that we should be taking care of the environment and started to become worried about ecology. And so the response was to start selling appliances and products in earth colors. And so turquoise stoves and refrigerators got clicked a few clicks towards the green and got switched to avocado, and the yellows all turned into harvest gold and cotton red. And the idea was, let's worry about the environment and ecology by buying stuff that can't be recycled and that can't be, that has nothing to do with the environment. And so it made people feel good about themselves for being earth-minded, but it's sort of like a ridiculous idea. And so I like, the idea that these are really beautiful as objects, but that they sort of have this darker narrative and this darker context that's not so beautiful that we sort of would love to kind of explain away. And I really like that duality. So that's sort of what I've been doing with these. So I've said a lot. So.
Yeah.